In a single moment on a cold winter road, a promising young student vanished without a trace, leaving behind a mystery that has defied every attempt at resolution. On a remote stretch of Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire, the year was 2004 and the winter air carried a heavy stillness. On February 9th, a 21-year-old nursing student named Maura Murray vanished after a car accident on that dark road. Neighbors heard a loud crash and rushed to help. One offered to call the police, but she declined, saying she had already made contact. Then, in the span of mere minutes, Maura was gone, leaving her damaged vehicle abandoned by the snow-packed roadside. Details emerged like scattered fragments. Earlier that day, she emailed professors about a sudden family emergency, one that never truly existed. She withdrew a small sum of money from an ATM, and her dorm room was left in a curious state, with personal belongings neatly packed. Yet no footprints trailed from the crash scene, and no credible lead ever answered the question: where did Maura Murray go that night? Today, nearly 2 decades later, the sign marking Haverhill's exit remains much the same. The mountains still loom in quiet witness, blanketed by snow each winter, and the roadway twists through lonely stretches that see little traffic after sundown. Yet for those who remember, the sight of a black Saturn sedan on the side of Route 112 is impossible to forget. A single moment in time, the flicker of headlights in the dark, birthed endless questions with no resolution. What draws so many people to revisit this case isn't a simple desire for gossip or speculation. It is the profound sense of unfinished business, of a bright young student who disappeared in a flash, leaving those who knew her, along with strangers who became fascinated by her story, searching for an answer they cannot find. It's a story about the haunting silence that follows an event with no conclusion, and the weight that lingers in the air when logic fails to illuminate the truth. Welcome to Murder and Mystery HQ. I'm your host, and over the next few minutes we'll explore a story that has confounded investigators, drawn countless theories, and haunted a family searching for answers. On this channel, we focus on real events, unresolved cases where the truth lurks just beyond our reach. By diving into verifiable facts and first-hand accounts, we strive to shed light on riddles that challenge even the most seasoned detectives. Throughout our investigations, you'll hear from people who lived through these experiences, along with the documented evidence they left behind. From missing persons who vanished without a clue to strange coincidences that defy explanation, every case we discuss reflects a life forever changed and a community searching for closure. In today's episode, we focus on one particularly puzzling disappearance, the case of Maura Murray, a 21-year-old nursing student who embarked on a journey one cold winter evening in 2004 and never returned. First, we'll recount the critical moments leading to her absence. Then, we'll review the extensive search efforts, the conflicting accounts, and the threads of evidence that leave more questions than answers. But that's just the beginning. We'll also examine the context around why this investigation has captured the attention of so many online communities and armchair detectives. Could fresh leads or advanced investigative methods finally bring clarity to what happened on that remote New Hampshire road? Or does this story remain bound by the shroud it's worn for nearly 2 decades? Stay with us, and you'll uncover the small details that might be the key to understanding this mystery. Along the way, we'll touch on how certain cases gain widespread attention and why some remain unheard in the public eye. We aim to highlight the voices of those who keep hope alive, even when facts are scarce and obstacles immense.
Warning: viewers' discretion is advised.
It was the evening of February 9th, 2004. Temperatures hovered below freezing, and a blanket of snow covered the quiet mountain roads of Haverhill, New Hampshire. At approximately 7:27 p.m., a black Saturn sedan left the roadway and crashed into a snowbank along Route 112, a narrow 2-lane stretch bordered by thick woods and long driveways hidden by trees. It was the kind of place where every car is noticed, especially one that doesn't belong. A neighbor, Butch Atwood, a local school bus driver, spotted the car as he returned home. He pulled up beside it and saw a young woman, later identified as Maura Murray, standing near the driver's side. She appeared uninjured but visibly shaken. He asked if she needed help. She declined, calmly telling him that she had already called AAA. Butch, concerned, returned home just a few hundred feet away and phoned the police anyway. By 7:46 p.m., less than 10 minutes later, the first officer arrived. The Saturn was still there, with the nose buried in the snow. But Maura was gone. What the responding officer found only deepened the mystery. The car doors were locked. The windshield was cracked. Inside the Saturn were several of Maura's belongings: printed directions to Vermont accommodations, a box of wine, her college textbooks, and a stuffed animal. The vehicle itself had suffered front-end damage, but was still operable. Near the car, no footprints were found in the surrounding snow. None leading away, none approaching. Snow had fallen earlier that day, but conditions were stable at the time of the crash. Investigators noted a curious detail. A torn rag had been stuffed into the tailpipe of the vehicle. Some speculated it was an attempt to prevent the car from starting, a tactic that could point to foul play or to someone trying to conceal signs of smoke. There was also an open container of alcohol, suggesting Maura may have been drinking. In the days before her disappearance, she had purchased alcohol from a local store, and a sealed bottle of Bailey's Irish Cream was found in the car. However, that detail, like many others, only raised more questions than it answered. The area around the crash site was searched by police and tracking dogs that night and in the days that followed, but no scent trail was ever found. It was as if she had simply evaporated into the cold air. In the hours that followed, law enforcement questioned locals, canvassed nearby homes, and retraced the route Maura might have taken. But the timeline didn't make sense. Between the crash and the arrival of police, there was only a 7-minute window in which Maura could have left, on foot in sub-zero temperatures on a dark rural road. No blood was found, no sign of a struggle, no vehicle tracks besides her own. Yet Maura Murray was nowhere to be seen. In the years since that night, speculation has run rampant. Did Maura accept a ride from a stranger? Was someone following her? Or did she intend to disappear all along, planning every move right up until the final moment? There are those who believe she was abducted. Others are convinced she staged the crash to start a new life, far away from the pressures she was under. But with no witnesses, no confirmed sightings, and no trace of her ever found, we're left with a chilling question. Did someone pick her up that night? Or was Maura Murray trying to vanish on purpose? Long before the crash on Route 112, Maura Murray was known as driven, intelligent, and fiercely independent. A promising student athlete from Hanson, Massachusetts, she began her academic journey at West Point, the prestigious U.S. military academy. There, she studied chemical engineering, a demanding path that few pursued lightly. But by her sophomore year, something changed. She transferred to the University of Massachusetts Amherst, where she enrolled in the nursing program. It was a transition that seemed logical on the surface, but some believe it marked the first signs of strain. She continued to excel academically, yet cracks had begun to show beneath the surface. In the weeks before her disappearance, Maura's behavior had become complicated. During a shift at her campus job with campus security, she experienced what her supervisor later described as an emotional breakdown. She received a phone call, its content still unknown, and after hanging up, she reportedly broke into tears. When asked what was wrong, she simply replied, "My sister." But later, her sister would claim she wasn't the one on the other end of the line. Whether that call had anything to do with her decision to leave is still unknown. What happened next is a sequence of choices that have puzzled even the most seasoned investigators. On February 9th, the day she vanished, Maura sent an email to her professors stating that there had been a death in the family and that she would be away for a week. but there was no death. It was a fabrication. She then proceeded to withdraw $280 from her bank account, almost all the money she had. She stopped at an ATM where surveillance footage showed her alone. Back at her dorm, she packed up her room. Her belongings were neatly organized into boxes, and a printed email to her boyfriend was left on top. It read like a goodbye, or perhaps a confession, but it stopped short of explaining anything directly. She also printed MapQuest directions. Remember, this was 2004, leading toward Vermont. Why that destination? No one truly knows. There was no known friend or family member waiting for her there. She didn't make a hotel reservation. She didn't tell her boyfriend or family what she was doing. Her actions were deliberate, but the motivation remains hidden. Some have theorized that Maura was trying to escape mounting pressures, academic stress, personal struggles, a recent incident involving a credit card. Others argue it wasn't a spontaneous act. It was planned, methodical. She packed with intention. She left nothing overtly behind to suggest danger, and she didn't hesitate at any point during her movements that day. She made no phone calls to anyone she trusted. She said goodbye to no one. She left quietly, as if she expected to return, or as if she never planned to. Was she running from something, or was she simply leaving? But there's one question that still shrouds the entire case. Did Maura tell someone where she was going? If so, has that person stayed silent all these years? There were no outgoing calls or texts to friends that we know of. No confirmed messages giving away her destination. But it's hard to believe that someone could plan a trip so thoroughly and not confide in anyone. If someone out there does know what she was running toward or away from, they've kept it secret for 2 decades. In the early hours after Maura Murray's disappearance, the reaction was quiet. A few locals speculated that the young woman had simply wandered into the woods. Others believed she would turn up soon, cold, embarrassed, but safe. But her father, Fred Murray, felt something much darker had happened. Fred arrived in Haverhill the next morning, having driven hundreds of miles overnight. He was met not with urgency, but uncertainty. Police at the time didn't declare Maura missing. They treated it as a young adult choosing to walk away. That assessment would shape how the investigation unfolded and, some argue, how critical time was lost. Fred, however, wasted none of it. He began distributing missing person flyers immediately, speaking with anyone who had seen the car, knocking on doors, demanding action. In the days that followed, local authorities joined with search and rescue teams to canvass the area. Helicopters flew overhead. K9 units tracked the woods. Volunteers combed frozen back roads on foot, but there was no trace of Maura. Not even a dropped glove, a phone, or a trail in the snow. Every lead collapsed. Every theory ended where the road did. The community stepped up, but the system around them faltered. There's a timeline in missing persons cases that professionals call the golden hours. The first 24 hours are often the most important. It's the window when evidence is fresh, when witnesses still remember details, and when a person is most likely to be found. In Maura's case, that window closed without resolution. From the start, jurisdictional confusion clouded the investigation. The Haverhill Police Department initially led the search, but without a clear understanding of where Maura had gone, or if a crime had occurred, the urgency was absent. Soon, the New Hampshire State Police took over, but not before crucial hours passed. Inconsistent communication followed. A press release wasn't issued immediately. The public wasn't warned that a young woman was missing. No statewide alert was issued. By the time word began to spread, the snowy roads and surrounding forest had been walked over, plowed through, or iced over again, potentially destroying evidence. Tips began trickling in. Some said they saw a woman walking quickly down Route 112. Others swore they spotted her at a rest stop, confused and cold. One report claimed she had gotten into a car with an unknown driver, but every rumored sighting ended with the same phrase, unconfirmed. And the car itself, Maura's Saturn, was not immediately processed as a crime scene. It was towed, then returned to Fred days later. No forensic sweep was conducted in the critical early hours. To this day, some wonder, was evidence lost, discarded, or simply overlooked? Among the many tips received by law enforcement, one stood out. An anonymous call to the state police tip line claimed Maura had been abducted. The caller provided no details, no name, no location, no motive. The call was traced, but by then it was too late. The person behind the voice was never found, and no link to Maura was ever confirmed. Was it a prank? Or was it someone trying to hint at a truth they couldn't speak aloud? To this day, that call remains unresolved. A single moment of possibility, lost in the noise.
Hit the like button if these cases keep you on the edge of your seat. And let's keep going. There's more to this story. And maybe, just maybe, we're closer than we think.
By the mid-2000s, Maura Murray's disappearance was no longer just a local story. It had become a digital obsession. As time went on and official updates became scarce, a new wave of investigators emerged. Not from law enforcement agencies, but from laptops, living rooms, and message boards. Her case became one of the first to gain massive traction online. Websites like WebSleuth's early blogs and dedicated forums began dissecting the timeline. Every detail was analyzed: phone records, timestamps, photographs of the crash site. No clue was too small, no theory too extreme. By the early 2010s, Reddit threads dedicated to Maura were drawing thousands of comments. Podcasts like Missing Maura Murray gave the case a new voice, amplifying it to an international audience. The case wasn't just a cold file anymore. It was a living, breathing discussion, shaped by collective speculation and fueled by frustration. Some hailed the digital involvement as a form of modern justice. Others warned that the blurring line between public interest and personal privacy risked clouding the investigation itself. Some believe Maura was overwhelmed by academics, personal relationships, and legal trouble, and decided to walk away from it all. Her careful packing, printed directions, and sudden departure seemed to support this. The alcohol, the email to her professors, the goodbye note on top of the boxes. It felt intentional, but then why crash? Why disappear only minutes before help arrived? Others argue she was abducted, a predator driving by, someone who noticed her standing alone on Route 112 and seized the opportunity. The short timeline between the crash and police arrival seems to fit. One theory suggests she accepted a ride, willingly or under pressure, and never got the chance to return. A less common but deeply sensitive theory suggests that Maura may have been in such distress that she took her own life, but no remains have ever been found. No suicide note, and her family strongly rejects this theory. Then there are the more obscure clues. The rag in the tailpipe, for instance. Her father, Fred, later said he placed it there himself to stop the car from leaking smoke. But online investigators have speculated, was it a way to stall the car intentionally, or something far more sinister? And then there were local rumors of strange behavior among nearby residents, of uncooperative witnesses, of a house near the crash site that was later searched with cadaver dogs. But these threads always stopped short of concrete evidence. Despite the absence of solid leads, the years that followed Maura Murray's disappearance were filled with sightings, dozens of them. Some came from nearby New Hampshire towns. Others reached as far as Quebec and even into Canada's western provinces, where travelers swore they saw a woman matching her description. There was one report that stood out. A truck stop attendant claimed to have seen a disoriented woman who looked like Maura, alone, nervous, and refusing help. But by the time investigators followed up, the woman was gone and no trace remained. The sighting, like so many others, ended in silence. These moments, fleeting and unverified, became part of the wider folklore surrounding her disappearance. Was Maura running, hiding, or were these nothing more than misidentifications fueled by public desperation and blurred memory? In 2006, 2 years after her disappearance, law enforcement received a tip about a house not far from the crash site. The owners had acted strangely, some said. Dogs brought in to search the property alerted in the basement, but nothing was found. Years later, after pressure from the public and Maura's family, that same house was searched again, this time with ground-penetrating radar. What investigators discovered was inconclusive. A disturbance in the soil, yes, but no human remains. No evidence linked to Maura. Another dead end. Many who once stepped forward with confidence began to pull back. Witnesses recanted, theories unraveled. And as the years wore on, the volume of speculation grew louder, but the facts remained the same. No new physical evidence has been found since the night Maura disappeared. No wallet, no backpack, no phone. In an age where surveillance cameras track our every move and digital footprints lead everywhere, her trail was wiped clean.
Over the last several months, that home has become the target of increased speculation by a variety of private citizens. Some private citizens stated that they believed that there was a body, in fact, in that home, in the basement. And really that theory was based on a variety of different pieces of evidence, including a search that was done by a couple of dogs that belonged to private citizens, and a search that was done with something called ground-penetrating radar.
Why would someone vanish without a trace? And why, after all this time, has no one spoken up? If this was a planned escape, why has no message come through? If it was a crime, why has no guilt leaked into the open? The answers may still be out there, but only if the silence is finally broken. Yet even in the silence, the question remains, can this case still be solved? We are living in a different world now. A world of satellite imaging, cell tower triangulation, digital footprints that can be resurrected, and forensic tools we never dreamed of in 2004. Genetic genealogy, the same technique that cracked the Golden State Killer case, has become a beacon of hope for cold cases. Could an undiscovered trace of DNA, buried in that Saturn, or held unknowingly by someone who once searched the area, still hold the answer? Then there's the human factor, the memory that won't rest, the witness who's never come forward, the person who knows something but didn't think it mattered, or couldn't bear to speak up. Time can silence voices, but sometimes it gives people the strength to speak. So we ask, could someone watching this right now hold the final clue? Maybe it's a name, a place, a detail that seemed insignificant. Maybe it's something you overheard, or someone you once knew. Maybe it's buried in your memory, waiting for the right moment to matter. The case of Maura Murray isn't just a mystery to be solved. It's a life that deserves closure, a family that deserves peace, and a reminder that even the most impenetrable silence can sometimes be broken.
If you found this story compelling, if it stayed with you the way it stayed with so many of us over the years, then consider subscribing to Murder and Mystery HQ. We're building a community of thoughtful listeners, critical minds, and those who refuse to let unsolved cases fade into silence. We upload new true crime stories every day, cases that remain unanswered, stories that deserve attention, and mysteries that just might find resolution with the help of viewers like you. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload, and join the conversation in the comments. What you think, what you know, could make a difference. And if you know someone who shares your fascination with the unexplained, share this video, send it to a friend, discuss it, debate it. These aren't just stories, these are people, and remembering them is how we keep their stories alive. Thank you for watching Murder and Mystery HQ. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and remember, some truths are only waiting for the right eyes to find them. Until next time on Murder and Mystery HQ, stay safe if you can.